Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce for supporting this meeting and for also the other supporters as well. What I'd like to also mention particularly is when I arrived on Sunday evening in Abu Dhabi, I went through passport control, showed my passport. A few minutes later, it came back, stamped, and then he said, "Mr. Cross, is this your first time in Abu Dhabi?" I said, "Yes." "Welcome to Abu Dhabi." And he meant it. So that, to me, is a testament to something in terms of the work that you've been doing on organisational excellence, because I'm not sure whether there's many countries these days where you do get welcomed on arrival. Now, what I'd like to talk about today is called Winners and Winning at Work. One of the attributes of winners, I have to say, is that they don't always follow the rules. However, on this occasion I will, and so I've got 28 minutes, 25 seconds to talk. So, let me get on with it. I'm going to talk about what separates the elite performers from the world champions and those who coach them to CEOs and entrepreneurs. In a sense, this was the best ever benchmarking exercise that I've done. I wonder how many of us in this room have met our heroes. Any people met their heroes? Well, let me tell you, it is inspirational to meet your childhood heroes. And that's what I've done in this project in terms of looking at sportsmen and entrepreneurs and CEOs. Another question I would ask you, just to think about perhaps, how much of your potential and talent have you fulfilled in your career so far? I think it's a very easy question to answer to the people from Sri Lanka, perhaps. How much of your talent have you fulfilled in your career so far? I imagine, unlike people such as myself, you're how much? 60%? 70%? Oh, we're going to talk to these people later on. I would imagine that your horizons are opening up, whilst for some of us, perhaps our horizons are receding. I remember speaking to one of Britain's best authors who'd written about 39 books. It was the launch of his 39th book. I said to him, "Tell me," I was at a literary festival, "tell me, what's your favorite book?" His answer, "The next one." So, for me, the question is about that we have to ask ourselves, and this is a personal question, is what is it that you do? How do you do it? How well do you do it? And how well do you do it compared to the best? When you go to organizations, many organizations can't get past the second question because they're doing what they've always done. They don't have any ability to compare themselves. Well, on this exercise, I was able to compare talent. I just want to tell you about my background in Xerox, which has been mentioned so far. My early job was in recruitment, where if you've come across the English sport rugby or been to the Dubai Sevens, you will know that Clive Woodward, or Sir Clive Woodward, was the head coach of the World Cup winning English team in 2003. He also worked for Xerox, and I was there when Sir Clive was recruited. In fact, we made a priority of recruiting people from sports backgrounds, not just rugby, in our organisation, because we believed, and rightly so as it has turned out, that the attributes to be successful in sports translate to the business arena. There's a photograph there which is called, on a book called Workstations, which was produced in 1988 by a photographer who made a study of the workplace then. It was the dawn of the digital age. And I was fortunate to fulfill my ambitions very early on in Xerox when I got an international job. And this picture of me with a group of people is in India, where we set up one of the first joint ventures in India, which is a partnership with BK Modi, who later on introduced mobile phones to India and contributed significantly to their industrialization. At the same time, we worked in Eastern Europe, where, having studied politics and international relations, I was able to see firsthand the downfall of communism. And so that is Romania, shortly after the revolution, when I was there on Xerox business. In 1992, I was involved in the European Quality Award. And that's the three awards that Xerox won, the only company, I think, to win the Baldrige, the Deming, and the European Quality Award. Why did we enter? We entered to win, because that's the type of company we were. And you'll see there, it's the CEO, Bernard Fournier, receiving the award from the King of Spain. Having won the award, we then shared our learnings worldwide with other benchmark companies. So I spent a lot of time working as both a host of benchmarking exercises and conducting themselves with other leading organizations. And a few years ago, I decided, well, what do I want to do next? What do I do? I'd used and worked with Professor Peter Saville in psychometric tests to recruit salespeople. He said he was launching a new test designed for the internet. Could I help find some sportsmen for him to profile? And this sportsman here happens to be Bob Wilson, who, is anybody an Arsenal supporter? Anybody support football? Yes, right. So he was the last amateur to play professional football in the UK. He was previously a school teacher. He wanted to play for Manchester United, but his dad said, get an education instead. So after graduating as a teacher, he joined Arsenal and made himself into the world's best footballer by the age of 25. What he also made himself into in the UK was the first goalkeeping coach in the UK. He'd been observing the Brazilian goalkeepers and saw that they were being coached. So he created his own goalkeeping school and trained to be a coach. On leaving football, he then became the first sportsman to appear on professional TV, broadcaster. So he made that transition. He'd set up a charity which was to support seriously ill young adults aged 16 to 40. His daughter had died, and he wanted to use what he'd learned for that experience. So out of this book, we used his reverence in the UK to approach other sports people. In fact, we expanded it further to look not just at sports people, to look at business people, to look at military, media, and the arts. The sports people that I looked at cover team sports, cricket, which the Sri Lankans will know about, rugby, which I've mentioned, soccer, Olympic sports, skiing, because I like skiing, looked at boxers, so a variety of sports, rowing as well. Businesses, a variety of businesses, about 35, 40 leading CEOs and entrepreneurs. And military, I was fortunate to profile some people in the special forces as well as some pilots and an admiral in the Navy. So a comprehensive group, and a very exclusive group, because we were asking them to complete a psychological profile taking 40 minutes to do. This is the profile, and these are the qualities that we were measuring. So you can see from these qualities that hopefully they can make sense to you in terms of they're based on what we do at work. We look at data, analyze. We look at facts. We need to be factual. We need to be creative, so we need to think. We need to influence. We need to deliver. And we need to deal with pressure. Out of these 36 dimensions of talent, then compared what the elite performers achieved and where were they were different from the average person in business. These are the factors that made them different. Those in red are where the sportsmen score less, and some of the other elite performers as well. In other words, they're less analytical, less factual, less rational. I guess that means that if you're on the sports pitch or if you're boxing, numbers don't necessarily matter that much. They also tend not to multi-focus. If you want to do something, you do it well, you focus on it. What stood out is that, above all, what makes these people different is the drive that they've got, the extent to which they're enterprising, they're competitive, they're opportunity-oriented, or they're sales-focused. How ambitious are they? Are they dynamic? And in a sense, if you don't have that inner drive, you won't make it to the top. But what we also found out, the gifts of these elite performers, is that they're positive, they're engaging, they're interactive, they're articulate. They're actually very charismatic, these people. They deal with pressure, because that's what you do when you have to score a penalty in a match that's going to be televised worldwide. They're self-assured. In a way, they're single-minded, they're tough-minded, they've got a positive mindset, and they're audience-minded. What they've got is what we would call a Control-Alt-Delete mindset, because they have to deal with the difference between success and failure in the public eye. They can't dwell on the past. They have to look forward. What they're helped by their positive mindset is that they are very likable people. They're confident, they're opportunity focused, and people want to spend time with them. I would say at this point, though, they might be engaging these people, but don't mistake that for empathy. They want to achieve what's in their own single-minded vision. We found that often they were inspired by a crisis or an opportunity, or somebody identifies and activates their talent, a hero, a peer, a family member, or a teacher, a coach. They served an apprenticeship, they learnt their craft with challenging peers and high expectations. They're able to step out of their comfort zones. They follow their passion. They don't give up or accept second best. They're supported by a network. And they're trained and they're coached to win. I don't know if you recall speaking when Dr. Harrington was speaking yesterday, that we learned that his mentor was Feigenbaum, who happened to be one of the most influential people in the quality movement post-war. He was the only one that I know that ran manufacturing plants worldwide when he was at General Electric. He was also a tool maker. He actually worked with his hands. And after his degree in engineering, did an MSc in economics. So an incredible individual. And that's what these people who get to the top have. They have coaches or mentors who help them fulfill their talents. And this is what they look like in the sports area. And these are the people who you might see on the football pitches urging the referee to change his mind or indicating to their team a change of strategy. Because these people, the head coaches, what makes them different from the elite? So I started to look at the data in more detail and say, well, let's look at the data. There must be some other things that make a difference, and realized that I wasn't going into the context of what makes people effective. So when we looked at the head coaches, found that these people were more enterprising, more striving, and dynamic than the people that they were coaching. They wanted to win more than the teams. They were actually more composed and more thick-skinned. Well, if you think of the criticisms that these people have in the public eye, they learn that. If they don't have it when they start the job, they will when they finish. They're very engaging, they're very interactive, they're articulate, they can be very forceful, purposeful, directing, convincing, and challenging. If you know of Alex Ferguson, you'll have heard of how he would throw boots, or once in 4 times in 27 years, he threw boots at one of the players because he was dissatisfied with their performance. So these inspirational head coaches have the basics plus. One point I'd like to add on emphasize here is that they are meticulous when it matters. Here you can see, this is a coach of a Turkish club, French coach there, Philippe Cocu, who just got fired after about 3 weeks. What happened was that the owner of the club decided, because of pressure from fans and the results weren't there, that's what he had to do. What we find in the coaches these days is that they have more analytics available than the quality world. If you start to look at the way that they run it, the data that they've got available in it now, it is a science of success. But these head coaches might have access to the data, but fundamentally these are people who deliver results by setting the direction and forcing the pace. When you're winning, they win today and win tomorrow. So they have a time horizon that's different from the sports people. They're crisis handlers. They have to be visionaries. And they combine, which sounds somewhat paradoxical, to be both instructors, this is what you must do, and facilitators. They're probably the most inspirational people of the group that I met. They're enthusiastic, they're energizing. And if you're aware of these types of people, you'll notice that these people don't switch off when they get older. They use their experience. The other aspect of it, if you want to have a quick snapshot of who's talented in your organization, go in early one morning and see who turns up. They're probably the most talented or motivated. What the coach is also able to do is ask powerful, probing questions. What do you really want to do with your life? That was a question that was asked of one of the people that was profiled, who was studying law, and actually said, well, I want to be involved in the arts field. And so what she is now is one of the leading entrepreneurs of art in the UK, just because somebody asked that tough question and listened. So as for these head coaches, perhaps they are our best teachers. They're in it to win it. They're always under the spotlight. I had to be very aware of these people's privacy and also learn about the celebrity effect. Sometimes you can't write about everything that you see. It can get misconstrued. These people live by the basics. They're pragmatic benchmarkers. They're always comparing. Now, just about the CEOs. The CEOs, the inspirational leaders there, you have to accept and expect imperfection. And this is where Peter Drucker talks about leaders as strong people with strong weaknesses and strengths that make them productive. He says they're monomaniacs on a mission. I don't know about you, but I have worked for people like that. I have benefited from working for people like that, but it's hard lessons that you learn. They've got know-how, they understand their business, they know the rules of the game. And you can see from the profiles here a greater variety of talents that distinguish the CEOs. One that really highlighted the difference is that the change orientation of these people. So the effective CEOs who are able to deal with uncertainty, who adapt quickly, are the ones that stay the pace in the model world. And what I also found particularly interesting in this is interviewing some CEOs in their 70s, and they were still as effective as they had been in their 50s. They were still as determined. So, another interesting point here is that you'll see that they're self-promoting. This is a big change in the business world. If you look back 30 years ago and compared the salaries percentage-wise of CEOs to now, something has changed. And what has changed is that the knowledge age, the knowledge economy, has meant that we've gone into a winner-takes-all economy, where small differences can have a massive impact. Not going to have time to take you through these, but if you've got the capability of a CEO or good at photographing, you'll be able to see that there's slightly talents for people in the business excellence world. A sales director. The red one in this sales director says this is less meticulous and less principled. What you'll see, though, is that this person is involving as well as engaging, very psychologically skilled in sales. The biggest finding that I got, and this is what I'm exploring, is that people in the business, sporting world who were able to transfer their skills continually and progress had entrepreneurial qualities. And by this I mean they get into the zone, they get the positive mindset, they stay in the zone, they're able to see possibilities, create superior opportunities, they're open up to the world, and they build capabilities in other people. I don't know if anybody's worked for any CEOs recently who've set up new businesses, but they are challenging to work for because they never stop. There is another definition for the entrepreneur I have as somebody who creates at the point of their self-destruction. This is Bob Wilson's profile. He'd just been a footballer, yet he's a natural entrepreneur. But if you consider this about staying in the zone as a goalkeeper, you need to keep your concentration. This is a female CIO, Chief Information Officer. What's very different about this person is that she wasn't particularly competitive. She was a great team player. And perhaps that's what we need to start to look for in the future. Because I found very few servant leaders in the sample that I selected. So I want to sort of round off by going in talking about reminding those who are either at the start of their career or have got a lot of potential to film, always go back to the basics. Always ask these questions about the basic talents of yourself. Remember that you create your own luck. The two areas that you can do is to understand fail early as a learning experience. If you want to get to the top, you are on the edge of success and failure. If we've got any philosophers in the audience, that's very related to the Aristotelian concept of arete and excellence, which is linked closely to virtue. But that's philosophical. On the practical terms, mentor magic. We probably can't change much about our personality, although we can. Our presentation skills can be improved. We can decide what we want to do. But what we can change are some of the coaches we've got and find new coaches. This is an example of some of my coaches here and mentors. What I would say, not all of these mentors got on with each other. So you select mentors for different aspects that you want to learn. If you're from China, you know about pass the hurdle. You need to stay connected with the right types of people. So what is it that's going to let you have the credibility of that mentor? If you want to amplify your talent, This is very hard to do because it relates you to look at yourself as a person. Is that the school alarm? I've got to stop talking now, have I? If I just explain this slide, I did this map of who I knew a few years ago. I started to say, well, who are the powerful people really backing me to get my next contract? Who are the sponsors? Who are the rivals? Who are the de-energizers? What does this say about the contacts that I've got? Actually, I've got some very good contacts now because of these world champions, because somehow being a world champion gives you access to presidents and prime ministers. It gives you access to other levels. But do you need to refresh your sponsors? Who can you rely on and trust? Who introduced you? Who could vouch for you? If I want to meet a prime minister, which I've met, somebody has to say, trust this person. At the end of the day, what I would say, in talent, you have to trust yourself. You have to work out who you want to be, what you want to have, and what you want to do. If you can answer these questions, this is the final slide, by the way. In your own careers, if you can ask yourselves there's two types of people in organizations, I maintain. There's what I call the apparatchiks, the bureaucrats, and there's the entrepreneurs. I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs. And in my career, when we managed half the world, we dealt with the entrepreneurs part of Xerox. But you still need to understand that you need those other people who provide those Lean Sigma processes, the basics of the organization, the processes. You need to understand that what those powerful people want and how you can bridge the gap between who you are and what you offer and what they need. So, thinking about the basics again, smiling, engaging with people, it sounds like how to make friends and influence people. Well, it probably is. It comes back to what do you want to do, how do you want to do it, how well, and how well against the best. On that final note, then, I would wish you well in your careers. And as Bob Wilson was told by his daughter, I'm looking forward to you using what you've learned, not necessarily from what I've been talking about, but from this conference, because surely that's the purpose of events such as this. Thank you very much indeed.